Welcome, and today I'm going to be showcasing a tutorial for coloring locomotives and putting them in the livery that you would like them to be in, because I know that it can be hard for some people, but usually for me it's not that difficult. So what I'm going to be doing is showcasing what I do, and it's different for every person, but for me, I like to use a basis for a freelance livery anyway, and pretty much just go from there. I'll also be using the coaches as an inspiration for the livery as well, as considering that they're one of the most defining features of the consist. So what I'm doing is looking at pictures, if I can find the right one that I'm looking for, and go off from there using the coach livery design as a basis. Not finding the ones I'm looking for, but oh, there we go. 1934. Okay. So what I've done so far is get a basic starting point, because I want the livery to follow a certain line. So what I've done is start off with the Amfleet coaches, because we don't have any Horizon ones that I know about, but that's beside the point. My point is, if you want the livery to follow a certain line, you always start by giving an example of where the line of the livery is supposed to follow. In this case, I'm using the area around the windows, inspired from the original 1934 Hiawatha coaches. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm using these as an example because I'm trying to keep it as original as possible while still keeping a modernized feel to it, which is what I'll be doing later on. So I've started with a simple baseline for the livery to follow, and after which I will add the maroon color wherever I see fit. And like I said, the best thing you can do is to keep the lines of the livery consistent and follow them for the entirety of the locomotive, if that is what you're doing. If what I'm saying comes off as a bit jumbled, it's because I've never really explained this before, but I will try my best. So in this case, where there's an opening where the livery's supposed to go, but it's being covered up, you pretty much just use the line tool right here, and you draw the line. If it's elongated, you can always shrink it down and bring it to where you want it to go. And same thing over here. Whereas there, you don't need to follow the line because it's just on the same line of pixels. So if you just follow it all the way over here. And again, on the other side, you can just stretch it out and shrink it down. Oh, that was a mistake. And for every area that's going to be colored in, we'll be filling in that later, but I actually missed a spot over here. In this case, where there's an object that's supposedly in the way, what you would do is you color that in, and then close it off at the top, so that you're following the consistent line. And in this case, where the line's supposed to be colored in, but it isn't, this area right here, we'll go back to that later, but for now, we're going to complete the lining of the locomotive as far as this goes. Sorry about the background noise, if that's distracting at all. So just go along the locomotive, creating the lines wherever you want them to go. And once you get to the front, I have a plan for what I want to do, but cross that bridge when we come to it. And like I said, just keep the line consistent and don't stray off the path. Oops. Undo that. And just keep on drawing. Or coloring, I should say. So, once I get up to the front, I have an idea. However, I will not be doing that just yet. Not until I finish the lining of the locomotive. And again, with this area, stretch and shrink. And if you want to keep the line going, you can just stretch it again. But just make sure that it's still straight and flat the entire way. Oops. Oh, I see what I did. If you right click with your mouse, you draw a white line because that's the second color. Right clicking activates the background color, which you don't really want to do. So I did that by accident. That was my bad. And of course, for the doors, you keep looking back at your reference just to be safe, and if the lining goes over the doors within the same space, or the same lining pattern, then you follow it. So, once we get up here, I do have a plan, which is, to make a sort of arrow design because of the Hiawatha Indian motif. And in this case, what you can do is, once you draw your first line, you can take the select tool, select it, copy, and go up here, paste, rotate it, flip it vertically, and then place it where the opposite line would go. And once I get up here, what I'm going to do is do the same thing again. But in this case, you don't really need to flip it, I can just place it right there. And continue with my idea of the arrow motif by completing said arrow. And you're going to want to connect it because we'll need to eventually anyway. So, of course, once you're done with that, if there's any spots in the paint where you want there to be like breaks, like here, where I want it to sort of come down into a completed arrow, but have feather like designs within, where the base paintwork will show through, you can do that, which is what I'm doing here. Alright, so once you've done that, you can take a look at what you've got so far, and if you like it, then you can what you can do from here is just go right ahead and color in all the maroon area. You're going to want to be careful that you don't color anything you don't want to. Now, when you get here, this is the tricky bit, because the line isn't open all the way up. So what you do is you click all the individual areas where it's open that's still within the maroon lining pattern. Once you've done that, you can just go right on your merry way and continue the completion of the maroon lining. And there we go. Now, my plan for this is to get a bit of a silverish gray area like seen at the top here, and color it maroon down at the base, which is what I'm going to do here. So, like I said, color all the areas that you want it to be a certain color. And of course this can be rather tedious at times, however, it's just the way it's gotta be. So, for the springs, because they're not exactly supposed to be red, what I'm going to do is make them the same color as the wheels. And there we go. And go back to coloring the maroon for the fuel tank and all that. Oh, that was a mistake. And one thing you don't want to do is color the outline a specific color that you don't want it to be, because if you do that, it'll ruin all the rest of the lining that you have going for you already. So, I did it again. Sometimes it happens, and the best thing you can do is just hit the undo button right there, and then everything will be right as rain. The step ladder, and of course, color the springs the same color as the wheels. And of course, zoom out to see what you have so far, see if you like it or not. And of course, I missed one little area down here with the tank, or the I don't really know what it's called, but it's a little panel down there. And just to make sure that it's not a definitive white, you can pick for almost a darker white, light gray-ish. And before we go on to the roof, I'm going to go ahead and color the rest of the locomotive the shade of orange that I want. it to be. So, like I said, just keep on plugging away. Oh, pardon that. So, what you want to do is use a line tool to fill in the diagonal spaces, because it's actually easier that way than it would be to just use the bucket tool, or the fill tool, I guess you could call it, to do every single one. So, just keep on coloring it in the shade that you want. And like I said, with the maroon coloring before, it won't fill automatically, so you have to fill the individual spaces. Zoom out, see what it looks like so far. And if you like the way it looks so far, you can continue from there, or if you'd so choose, you can also go ahead and add any coloring details that you might want, such as a Milwaukee Road logo on the side of the engine, Amtrak down over here, or even, should you so choose, you can add in Hiawatha lettering on the locomotive at the back. Now, this isn't a tutorial just for the Charger. This goes for any sprite that you want to color. And the trouble with this is finding the kind of lettering that you want for it. And just to sorry it's taking so long. I'm just trying to we could try this one. And of course, if that's too small for you, you can change the size of it as well. Like that. Now, of course, you don't have to do that, but that's just an example of what you can do with the lettering. And as for the roof, what I'm going to do actually is do something a bit creative with the curve tool right here. Now what you see here is still part of the roof, but it extends down to the side of the engine. So I'm going to keep it consistent with the rest of the silver that I'm going to be adding in by using the curve tool to sort of transition it. Into the rest of the silver that we're going to add, like this, and fill in the gaps, like I said before. And after that, you can color the roof. And of course, if you want to color the horn a specific color other than just black or gray, well, I'm doing silver for this one since it matches the roof, you can do that too. And here we have a seemingly finished Hiawatha Charger. I understand that the paint scheme looks absolutely hideous. This is just an example. I If I wanted to do something really quality, like, I would base it on the actual Hiawatha livery instead of just freelancing it. But here's just an example of what you can do with sprites, how to color them correctly, and how to get it looking somewhat decent, unlike this one, which is absolutely hideous. So if this tutorial is a big help, then I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So, thank you. And if you want any more help, then please feel free to... Oh, I missed one. I missed something. Right here. Wow. So there you go. A finished Hiawatha charger. If the paint scheme is super ugly, I'm sorry, but this is just an example. I wasn't really trying on this one. If I wanted to be really creative, I would, but I'm just doing something quick and easy so that just to get the gist of it down. So if you enjoyed it, then... Oops. Another thing I missed. That area right there, right here where the mouse is, that's not supposed to be red. It's supposed to be white. So now, it's finished. If you enjoyed this, then I'm glad it was a help. And again, I'm sorry if this is absolutely hideous. But like I said, I wasn't really trying on this one. It was just sort of a basic thing to get the gist of it. So, that's that. Hiawatha charger. And if you have any more questions, then please feel free to ask. And I sure hope this helped.